Let's talk about time series analysis using Python and Pandas. We will discuss what is simple moving average for understanding our time series data. We're going to ask how moving average works, what is SMA and why, rolling or moving. We will discuss different plots to understand how this method works. Let's discuss now this and more now with Pandas now. Let's discuss what is simple moving average using Pandas. We are going to discuss different topics and we'll understand how this simple but useful formula works. We're going to discuss this in order to understand how the market works, how the flux of information in Wall Street could help us, how the currency market and stock market works, why to use 50 days moving average, why to use 200. Let's work with Jupyter Notebook right now. First of all, we have to ask why to use rolling mean or moving average Pandas. We can name it in two different ways and it's the same. Rolling mean because we will see that how we will moving in different frames, and moving average because it's a technique coming from the moving average in general. It's simple because we're just going to use the formula I just mentioned. We're just going to use this simple formula. And let's see, why is it used? Well, it is used to find patterns in time. We will use SMA to understand the different patterns in our data. Could be uphill or downhill. Do we have a trend? We don't have a trend. This is the kind of questions we have to ask and identify in our time series data. However, notice that it is not for forecasting. It can help us to understand our data, but not to future or to find future values. Let's work with certain information that I'm gonna make reproducible. That way you can run it back. Let's run Pandas and NumPy to create this information. As you can see, I'm gonna create certain data frame here, and we have two different columns and the period that's going to work as our date variable. Let's check here. Once we have to create here, let's check that we have 100 periods of information, and leads and sales are made using different random formulas. Now, we create our data frame in Pandas in this way. We say period. It's going to take the values. Here, as I mentioned, it was our date, leads, and sales respectively. Now, we have here two different columns, leads and sales, that are going to be, or I'm going to use them as my main columns, and period just to check the different information on time. And there, let's plot it using Matplotlib to understand how our data works. Check here that I'm going to say raw data because we haven't done nothing here, and sales. Let's focus on sales. You can see here we have certain trend on time. Check how our data is being accumulated, and we have more and more sales through the time. And also we can see that there are some up and downs in our data. So my goal is to identify different trends in our formula. But in this case, you can see what could be is just going up and down. So let's calculate certain stuff, how rolling mean works. And then the idea is to go through certain frame and to calculate the mean in this frame. This is how rolling mean works. We're going to calculate for different frames the values or the mean of our data. In this case, I'm going to say, well, you're going to move from sales in 5 different periods. That means we're going to take 5 different periods in the past to calculate the present. For example, we have here our value 6, and we want to calculate what was the average of the past sales. That's simple as it is. Let's see here, for example, we say, and we're going to name it rolling sale 5. And you can see that I'm just going to use that my data frame and directly call rolling. That means we're going to calculate or extract 5 different values from the past and then calculate the mean. And we're going to store it in this column. Check now that I have created one column with that name. However, check that we cannot calculate the rolling mean for these observations because they don't have 5 periods in the past. Then for this observation here, I can calculate what was that value. Check here that if you calculate the mean of these 5 values, you will get this. Check, for example, here. You have all these values and divided by 5 and you get 66. That's how it works. The same we can do with leads, and we're gonna just call that column we want, and Pandas function rolling give us 5 values with that frame of time and the calculate that mean. There you go. Finally, we have rolling mean of period 5 for 2 different columns. And check that you can calculate 11 the same way that before. It's going to be the average of these 5 values over here. That's how it works. You can, of course, change the value here and say 10, 6, or any period or frame or window of information you need. Now, once we have done this, we can plot it. This is how we're going to do. We're going to say plot, and we're going to call it or label it rolling mean in order to understand rolling mean 5 this way. And we're going to plot our raw data, and we calculate it right now here. And you can see that we have the different trend. We have that trend like in the past, and that blue line is rolling mean, can give us certain information about our data. It's moving, yes, it's changing over the time. However, it's smoother than our raw data. That's how it works. What I mean, it's gonna give us certain idea how the data is behaving, and it's gonna smooth our plots. And you can ask yourself, why to use this? Well, to finish, I'm going to mention that when we are using moving average or rolling mean, the same, we are gonna use it in the currency market to compare different behaviors on time, and in order to understand if we have to buy or we have to sell our stock. Check here, for example, that these 2 different periods of time are marking a cross called golden cross. The 50-day moving average is allowing us to know in the past 50 days compared with 200 that was more or less constant. But when we see that in the 50 previous days it's increasing, then when we compare with the 200 past values, there is a change in our time series. Then it could be a good moment to buy. That's one important remark why to use rolling mean or moving average in general.